Thanks for joining me on episode 1150 of the Inspired Stewardship Podcast.
I'm Kristen.
And I'm Jeff.
From Small Biz Life Podcast. If your calling is to be a small business owner, we challenge you to grow yourself and find your true identity so you can be empowered to live your calling.
One way to be inspired to do that is to listen to this, the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, with our friend Scott.
But these things, these science tools are not the thing that really fundamentally changes how you do it over time. This is why so often people will find an app, find a tool, get excited by it, start playing with it, make some progress, but then fall back to old behaviors and go right back to where they were before. Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world. In today's episode about developing your influence through stewarding your treasures, I talk with you about why money management is both an art and a science. I share why we often focus on the tools, tips, and science at the expense of the art. And I also share why the art is just as important. As we talk about stewarding your treasures, wouldn't it be great if you could support this podcast and do it without costing yourself an extra dime? Turns out you can. All you have to do is use inspiredstewardship.com/Amazon when you're ready to make a purchase via Amazon, and a small commission will come back to support the show. If you enjoy the show when you're ready to buy from Amazon, just use inspiredstewardship.com/Amazon. Just like I talked about on Tuesday when we were talking about managing your time, managing your money is really both an art and a science. We talked yesterday about the differences and the similarities between art and science, and money management falls into that category where you have to understand and have a certain degree of technical knowledge and skills. There are applications and tools that can help make things easier, but fundamentally it comes down to how well you understand yourself. How well you understand your values, your priorities, how well you understand your relationships, your family of origin, your relationship with other people and with money, as well as with yourself. It's about those connections that we have that really determine how we handle our money. Because the truth is, you can have a budget, you can have a tool, you can have something where you track every dollar that you spend, but at the end of the day, you still choose to spend a certain way. Think about the language we use when it comes to money. We talk about things like, I had to buy this item. I had to buy a new car. I had no choice. I was powerless in this situation. Someone came in and forced me to do it. That's really what that language is implying. But the truth is, in all situations, you actually have the power of choice. But until you understand that, not just with your head, but with your heart, you really end up having a bad relationship with money often. We focus so much on the tools and the tips and the techniques of money management. If you think about it, you can see blog after blog, podcast after podcast that talks about whether or not you should have a Roth IRA, a 401k, a 403b, all of this alphabet soup. There's tons of technology and applications out there that claim that they're the thing that's going to automate and make it where you save more money. Or they're the thing that's going to make sure that you budget all of your money and spend it exactly the way that they want you to, that you're going to gain the power over your money. And there's nothing wrong with these apps. There's nothing wrong with these tools. There's nothing wrong with the tips and the knowledge. But fundamentally, we know what we're supposed to do to manage our money. We know that we should spend less than we make. We know that we need to do something smart with the difference. And a lot of times we end up arguing about things that really don't move the needle that much. Fundamentally, is it better to pay off debt or invest? And immediately, most people start doing a math calculation about what's the percentage of interest on each thing, how long will it take you to pay off the debt, what kind of growth would you have on the investment in that length of time. And they turn it into a scientific problem and a math formula about whether or not you should do one over the other. But the truth is, fundamentally, it's really more about a mindset and a view. The length of time is a factor, sure. The interest rate, yeah, that's a math problem, and it affects your decision-making maybe. Whether or not you're geared towards savings or spending might matter. All of these things do affect the decision, but fundamentally, what is your relationship and decision that you have around investing, saving, spending, paying off debt, and these sorts of things? What is an alignment with your values and your goals? What actually makes you be able to achieve the freedom and the flexibility that you probably want quicker? Oftentimes, we look at it as a math problem, when in reality, what we're trying to achieve is a direction for our life. We want to get to a point where we have more freedom and flexibility. We have the ability to do things because we want to do them, not because we feel like we have to. Remember, you always have a choice, so there is no have to, but you can feel like you have to. People talk about saving up enough money so that at any moment they could quit their job. And what's funny is oftentimes when you do that, you then stay in the job for a lot longer, because just having that mental idea of I can leave this at any time somehow makes some of the things that were intolerable tolerable again. That's more of an art discussion than it is a science discussion. And the truth can be true about paying off debt or reaching financial independence, or what does success look like for you? How do you want to set up your life in a way that really gets you what you want? Yes, you need to understand the tools. You need to understand the fundamentals. You need to be able to do 6th grade math, and you need to be able to understand and educate yourself on these things. But these things, these science tools, are not the thing that really fundamentally changes how you do it over time. This is why so often people will find an app, find a tool, get excited by it, start playing with it, make some progress, but then fall back to old behaviors and go right back to where they were before, because they don't understand the art. They don't understand the emotionality. They don't understand how to really develop a why and get connected with the process. So instead of a chore, it becomes something that they want to do. It becomes a habit, a mindset. It becomes a routine and a value that they have, instead of just something that you have to do. We're back to that word, have to, again. The truth is, you can choose to understand the science and the art of money and really make a change and a difference in your life. Or you can choose to continue behaving and acting and struggling as well. You always have a choice. Thanks for listening. Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you like this episode on the stewardship of treasures, you can sign up for our treasures tips by going to inspiredstewardship.com/treasures or text in the U.S. 44222 treasures tips. And we'll send you 5 weeks of our best tips on stewarding your treasures. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.